In this video, I want to talk about bad coaching or bad therapy. I have 6 examples, 6 signs, if you will, and the last one being, to me, the worst thing that a therapist or coach could ever do. And let's go through them just so that you can be aware, because I've been to therapy, I've worked with coaches, and good coaching, good therapy is life-changing. However, too many people are spending thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, and more importantly, their time every week going back, and they're just not getting better. So what are they? The first thing, coaches and therapists and frankly people in general become addicted to a certain style. Psychoanalysis, Freud's style of psychotherapy is over 100 years old now, and it's widely recognized that it is no longer effective. And yet, I met somebody on an airplane recently who, in her country of origin, they were just starting to catch up to the rest of the world in terms of therapeutic models. And so she is convinced that psychoanalysis is an effective model, when it is not, but she's stuck in the past. And you see this all the time. You see it in NLP too, that certain people, they're a fan of this model or that model, and they only use this model or that model, when in NLP in particular, flexibility is one of the foundational approaches. So it's really, really dangerous when you have a Gestalt practitioner, a psychoanalyst, or a Jungian or a Rogerian therapist, or a CBT, and they only will do this thing. And this is the explanation about the nature of the unconscious, and this is how people get better. These people force their clients into a model of the world, into a belief system that may or may not be helping, and oftentimes is hurting or maybe severely limiting. And unfortunately, I think due to marketing, you're seeing some big NLP names go down this road. I love the Andreases. I love them. But I'm only I can't say why. I don't want to make an assumption as to why they're doing this. I think Andreas NLP is some of the best NLP out there. I have their practitioner. I have their master practitioner. I have all of Steve's courses. I love core transformation. I love wholeness work. But what I don't like is that now the Andreas clan is really only promoting wholeness, core work, and metaphors of movement, which to me is so unfortunate, because in my opinion, they're missing out on the breadth of all the wonderful techniques NLP can do. I used to be a coach in the self-concept group, and one of the reasons why I love that model is because it's so powerful, and yet trying to force a change of self-concept onto every client situation is just inappropriate. And I was seduced by that because I love the model so much, and I wanted to apply it everywhere, even where it doesn't fit. A Rogerian therapist who sits there and projects unconditional love and acceptance onto a client and assumes that that's the fastest way for them to change. Well, is the client actually changing, or are they not? To me, the most important thing is the client getting results? And the therapist, the coach, the change worker's job is to change our behavior until they get the results. So anytime someone has decided this is the truth, this is the way that we do coaching or therapy, they have forced a box onto their clients, and it's limiting. At the least, it's limiting. And at the worst, it's quite. Second thing, your coach doesn't think you can get better, or your therapist doesn't think you can get better, or they think therapy has to take years and years and years. Back in the old days, we thought that change was slow. Now we know neurologically this is not the case. I had a therapist who was a psychology professor at my school, and we were talking about one of her clients. And she says, well, I know that person will not get better. This is the best that they can do. We know now that the coach's expectations of the client largely influences the results the client can get. This is called the Pygmalion Effect, where your beliefs, especially as an authority figure, project onto that other person. So if your therapist or coach doesn't think you can get over your problem like that, then it's unlikely in that container that you will. What's even more dangerous is when that coach has expectations that therapy should be long, slow, and painful. A lot of approaches, we'll talk about this in another point, a lot of approaches believe that getting over trauma has to be a long, slow, painful process. And so they end up torturing their clients as a result. Your therapist's beliefs about how you're gonna get better matter. They really matter. Point 3, you're not getting better. So I've tried out different coaches, I've tried out different therapists, and I will give them an honest try. If after a certain amount of time, however, things are not getting better for me, I'm not seeing a significant reduction in symptoms, then I leave. And I have a high bar. I have a very, very high bar for what I expect from coaching or from therapy. If I show up and I have anxiety about something, I should leave without it. And this is why I like NLP. Good NLP practitioners, you will leave without your problem in one session or a short handful of sessions. Not always one, but in a short handful of them. Unfortunately, not everyone has that skill or precision today. So I think it's incumbent upon us as clients, as consumers, to test out, search, research, and find, and if you're not experiencing a reduction or an extinction of symptoms, you leave. And this comes back to your beliefs about what's possible. If you go to these Facebook groups, support groups for anxiety, depression, PTSD, people don't think they can get better. And the consensus seems to be that these issues are things that you manage, that you can never get over. This is not true. You can experience a total extinction of your neuroses, and you should demand it from your therapy. You must become convinced that you can and will get better, and find someone with the tools that can help you to do that. The other thing is you need to have measurable outcomes. Any vague or nebulous conversation is subject to wishy-washy magical thinking. In business coaching, for example, we're gonna measure your KPIs and track and see, are you getting better? If somebody has anxiety in a context, we're gonna measure that from week to week to find out, is the anxiety gone? And this is so important because the brain works by deletion, distortion, and generalization. So we have to measure to know if we're getting results. And any therapy that's not doing that, to me, is a complete waste of time. This one is wild. If the therapist wants to blame the client for not changing, that is bad therapy, bad coaching. Now, there's a little bit of a flip side to this coin because the client does have some responsibility. They have the responsibility to show up. They have the responsibility to do assignments between sessions, those types of things. However, I have seen neurolinguistic programmers, I have seen coaches and therapists who say the reason that people don't change is because they don't want it bad enough, right? Well, one of the premises, or they're resisting the change. One of the premises of Ericksonian therapy or NLP is to utilize the resistance, that there are no resistant clients. They're just inflexible therapists. Anytime a therapist is making an excuse for why their client doesn't change, that's bad therapy. Now, let's come to the worst, absolute most dangerous thing of all. And this is when clients or therapists go fishing for things that may or may not be there. Even if they are there, the client should be doing clean language, clean elicitation without presupposing certain things. Let me give you an example. If I bring somebody in and I say, a lot of people have that problem because of past trauma. In a situation with an authority figure, the client is hypersensitive to suggestions and cues. So they're very likely, based on that statement, to then go searching for trauma. Whether or not the trauma is related to the event or whether or not the trauma ever happened, there are thousands and thousands of examples of therapists inducing false memories of trauma. And this is particularly dangerous because most therapists are not using the most effective ways to get over trauma. Go and look up the Research and Recognition Project if you have trauma. Go look it up because they have found an evidence-based way to completely extinguish symptoms of PTSD. It is scientifically researched and validated. And there's no reason for anyone to suffer from PTSD or trauma anymore. It's just not necessary. And they've done this extinction of PTSD symptoms in number of sessions, 1, 2, or 3 sessions. So there are therapists out there who are suggesting trauma who don't know the most effective techniques to use it. I'll give you an example. I was in a therapy session with another person and a therapist, and the therapist goes, this might be caused by trauma. And the person goes, well, I don't really think that I have PTSD. And the therapist goes, well, you may have trauma and not even know it. Sometimes one of the symptoms of trauma is not knowing that you have trauma. And to an outside observer, that is so ludicrous to hear something like that. But be careful when you're in a situation with a therapist, because unfortunately, they're trained about how to be more persuasive. But they're planting bad ideas in your mind. And if you let them fester and linger, it can really corrupt your mental health. Know what you want out of therapy or coaching. Know what's possible. It shouldn't be what does the average person, or how does the average person get better? It should be the best therapists in the world, what types of results do they get? And therapists and coaches should hold themselves to that bar, that if XYZ therapist can help somebody get over their trauma in 2 hours or 15 minutes, as a therapist or coach, it's my responsibility to learn that skill set. As a client, it's my responsibility to find people who have that skill set. Do not, under any circumstances, go to a McDonald's therapist. Like they went to school and they did the thing and they went through the process and became a therapist or a coach. Unfortunately, that does not guarantee any skill in what they're doing.